The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the massive chamber, their voices rising in anger and confusion. The circular room stretched for miles, with floating platforms, carrying delegates from every corner of the galaxy. Today, they all shared the same question that burned in their minds. Why had Earth sent only one ship? Admiral Keth stood at the center platform, his blue skin dark with frustration. The Altarian leader had commanded fleets for over 50 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His 4 arms moved as he spoke, pointing at the holographic display that showed the approaching threat. "Look at these numbers," Keth's voice boomed across the chamber. "The Devourers have already destroyed 12 star systems. 12 entire worlds, gone in just 3 months. Every species here has sent their best ships to fight this enemy. My people contributed 800 warships. The Regellians brought 2,000 of their finest vessels. Even the peaceful Andromedans gave us their entire defense fleet." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "And what does humanity send? One ship. One single vessel with barely 300 crew members." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Commander Vos of the Centauri Defense Force slammed his fist on his control panel. "This is an insult to every soldier who will die in this fight. How can they be so careless with the fate of the galaxy?" General Tor of the Proxima Military Union stood up, his massive frame casting shadows on nearby delegates. "Perhaps humans are cowards. Maybe they think others will do the fighting while they stay safe behind their borders." Dr. Alina Martinez sat quietly in the human observer section. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but every delegate in the room knew she spoke for Earth. The other representatives had been demanding answers from her for hours, but she remained silent. Her instructions from Earth Command were clear. Say nothing until the time was right. The holographic display changed, showing the enemy that terrified the entire galaxy. The Devourers were not living beings, but machines, millions of them moving like a dark cloud through space. Each unit was the size of a fighter ship, but they worked together with perfect coordination. Behind them came massive constructor ships that could break apart entire planets and use the materials to build more Devourers. "They learn from every battle," Admiral Keth continued, his voice filled with worry. "Our energy weapons become less effective each time we use them. Our tactics mean nothing because they adapt faster than we can change. In the last battle at Vega Prime, we destroyed thousands of them, but they came back stronger." Captain Morris of the Earth Defense League, a veteran of many battles, shook his head. "My grandfather fought them at the Battle of Wolf, 359. He said they were like fighting shadows. Every time you hit them, they learned how to avoid that weapon the next time." The debate continued for hours. Some delegates suggested that humans were planning something secret. Others believed Earth simply did not understand how dangerous the Devourers were. A few even wondered if humanity had made some kind of deal with the enemy. "Maybe they know something we do not," suggested Dr. Lin of the Tau Ceti Research Institute. "Humans are young compared to most of our species, but they have shown unusual abilities before." This comment made many delegates uncomfortable. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 200 years ago, but they had already surprised everyone several times. Their technology developed in strange ways, focusing on areas that other species ignored. While most civilizations perfected energy weapons and faster ships, humans seemed obsessed with mathematics and quantum physics. "What good are equations against machines that eat planets?" General Tor laughed bitterly. "We need guns and bombs, not theories." Admiral Keth called for order as the arguments grew louder. "The point remains that we face the greatest threat in galactic history, and our supposed allies send one ship. The UES Defiance." He spoke the name with disgust. "Even the name sounds like they are mocking us." The display changed again, showing Detailed scans of the human vessel. The used Defiance looked ordinary compared to the massive warship surrounding it. It was about the size of a heavy cruiser, with smooth lines typical of human design. There were no obvious weapons, no heavy armor plating, nothing that suggested it could survive a real battle. "Look at it," Commander Vuh said, pointing at the image. "My flagship could destroy that ship with a single shot. How do they expect it to fight millions of devourers?" Dr. Martinez finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "The Defiance is exactly where it needs to be." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate turned to look at the human representative. She stood slowly, her calm expression unchanged despite the hundreds of angry faces staring at her. "You think we do not understand the threat," she continued. "You believe we are fools or cowards, but you are wrong about humanity. We have been preparing for this day longer than you know." "Preparing how?" Admiral Keth demanded. "With one ship?" Martinez smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You will understand soon enough. The Devourers are already approaching the Kepler Junction. Our fleets are moving into position. When the battle begins, you will see why Earth sent the Defiance." "And if you are wrong?" General Tor asked. "If your one ship fails, millions will die." "Then we will all die together," Martinez replied simply. "But I do not think that will happen." The emergency session ended with more questions than answers. As delegates returned to their ships, the topic of conversation remained the same. What were the humans planning? How could they be so confident? Some believed it was all a bluff, that humanity would reveal a hidden fleet at the last moment. Others thought the humans had lost their minds. Only Dr. Martinez knew the truth. She had seen the classified reports, watched the test videos, spoken with the scientists who had spent their entire lives working on Project Erasure. The other species thought in terms of bigger guns and stronger shields. Humanity had chosen a different path entirely. As she walked through the corridors of her ship, Martinez thought about Captain Reed and his crew aboard the Defiance. They were not ordinary soldiers but something new. People trained from birth for one specific purpose. The captain's entire family line had been selected generations ago for this mission. The long-range sensors were already detecting movement at the edge of the system. The Devourers were coming, bringing death and destruction as they had to sow many worlds before. Soon, the combined fleets of the galaxy would face them in what everyone expected to be the final battle. But Martinez knew something the others did not. This would not be a battle in any traditional sense. When the Defiance activated its systems, the very nature of the conflict would change. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not the biggest one. The Kepler Junction had become the most important place in the galaxy. 53,000 warships from hundreds of worlds formed the largest military force in galactic history. Massive dreadnoughts floated beside sleek destroyers, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could destroy moons. The combined firepower could level entire star systems. At the center of this enormous fleet sat one small ship that looked completely out of place. The used Defiance appeared tiny compared to the alien warships surrounding it. While other vessels displayed rows of missile tubes and massive energy cannons, the human ship seemed almost peaceful. Its smooth hull showed no obvious weapons, no heavy armor plating that marked true warships. Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical displays with calm eyes. He was a quiet man in his 40s, with graying hair and hands that never shook. His crew moved around him with practiced efficiency, each person focused on their specific task. The bridge itself was smaller than most alien command centers, built for precision rather than showing power. "Captain, Admiral Keth is requesting we move to the rear defensive line," announced Lieutenant Burke from the communications station. She was young but carried herself with the confidence of someone trained for this exact moment. Reed barely looked up from his displays. "Declined." Maintain current position. Sir, that is the 5th request in the past hour, Burke continued. The Regellian fleet commander is insisting we move behind their heavy cruisers for protection. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but the Defiance stays where it is. Across the fleet, alien commanders watched the human ship with growing frustration. They had offered the Defiance every possible protection, suggested dozens of safer positions, even offered to assign escort ships. The humans had politely refused everything. Admiral Keth opened a direct channel to the Defiance. Captain Reed, you are positioned in the primary engagement zone. When the enemy arrives, your ship will take the full force of their first attack. This is suicide. Reed's image appeared on screens throughout the fleet. He looked relaxed, almost bored. Admiral, my ship is exactly where it needs to be. We did not come here to hide behind others. But you have only 300 crew members. General Tor interrupted from his massive battleship. My vessel alone carries 5,000 soldiers. How can you hope to fight millions of enemies? We will manage, Reed replied simply, then cut the communication. The alien commanders exchanged worried glances across their private channels. The human captain seemed completely unafraid, as if he knew something they did not. Some began to wonder if the humans had hidden weapons or secret reinforcements nearby. Long-range sensors showed nothing, but human technology had surprised them. Before Commander Vos studied the tactical readouts on his flagship, perhaps they have some kind of stealth technology. Their ship might be more powerful than it appears. Dr. Lin from the research vessel Tau Ceti ran detailed scans of the Defiance. I am reading normal power signatures, standard shield generators, nothing unusual. If they have secret weapons, they are very well hidden. The debate continued until the long-range sensors detected something that made every conversation stop. At the edge of the system, space itself seemed to darken as something massive approached. The Devourer swarm was arriving. All ships, battle. Stations, Admiral Keth ordered across the fleet. Prepare for contact in 30 minutes. The enemy appeared slowly at first, like a distant storm cloud. Then the sensors began counting individual contacts, and the numbers became terrifying. 1 million, 5 million, 10 million separate Devourer units, each one a killing machine designed for one purpose. Behind them came the constructor ships, massive vessels that could break apart planets and build more Devourers from the raw materials. Sweet stars, whispered Captain Morris as he watched his screens. There are so many of them. The Devourer swarm moved with perfect coordination, millions of individual units acting as one organism. They had no formations in the traditional sense, flowing through space like liquid metal. Each unit was roughly the size of a fighter craft, but they could combine and separate at will, forming larger shapes when needed. All vessels, engage at maximum range, Admiral Keth commanded. Do not let them close distance. Fire everything. You have. The combined fleet opened fire with devastating force. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids sent streams of superheated gas toward the enemy. Missile batteries launched thousands of warheads, each one capable of destroying city blocks. Energy beams that could crack moons lanced through space. Leaving trails of distorted light, the weapons found their targets, and Devourer units began to die. Explosions bloomed like flowers across the enemy formation as the combined firepower of the galaxy struck home. For a few minutes it seemed like the defense might work. Thousands of enemy contacts vanished from the sensors. But then something terrible happened. The Devourers began to adapt. The plasma streams that had destroyed so many units became less effective as enemy hulls shifted to absorb the heat. Missiles found their targets but caused less damage as the Devourers learned to deflect the explosions. Energy beams that had cut through entire formations began to scatter harmlessly off modified armor. They are learning, Dr. Lin reported with growing horror. Each unit destroyed sends information to the others. They are adapting faster than we can adjust our weapons. Admiral Keth watched his tactical display with sick fascination. The enemy casualties dropped with each minute of fighting. Weapons that had been devastatingly effective became useless as the swarm adapted. Worse, the Devourers were pressing forward, accepting losses to get closer to the fleet. All ships fall back to secondary positions, he ordered. Modify your weapon frequencies, change your attack patterns. But it was too late. The Devourers had learned too much, adapted too quickly. The alien weapons became increasingly ineffective as the swarm pressed closer. Ships began to retreat as their guns failed to stop the approaching tide of mechanical death. Through all of this, the UE's Defiance remained perfectly still. While massive warships fled around it, the small human vessel held its position like a rock in a storm. Captain Reed watched the battle with quiet eyes, his hands steady on his controls. "Captain, the enemy will reach us in 10 minutes, Lieutenant Burke reported. "All other ships in our sector have retreated." "Understood," Reed replied calmly. "Continue monitoring their approach." "Sir, should we not fall back with the others?" Reed smiled for the first time since the battle began. "No, Lieutenant. We are exactly where we need to be. The Devourers are coming to us, which saves us the trouble of chasing them down." Across the fleet, alien commanders watched in horror as the small human ship faced the approaching swarm alone. Some called Reed a hero, others a fool, but all wondered the same thing. What did the humans know that the rest of the galaxy did not? The answer was coming, whether they were ready for it or not. The outer defensive line collapsed as the Devourer swarm overwhelmed the alien weapons. Ships that had fought bravely for generations found their most powerful guns useless against an enemy that learned from every shot. The mechanical plague pressed forward with terrifying purpose, consuming everything in its path. Admiral Keth watched his tactical display with growing despair. Half his fleet was already retreating toward the inner planets. The weapons that had protected the galaxy for thousands of years were failing against this adaptive enemy. Energy cannons that could destroy moons barely scratched the Devourer hulls anymore. Missiles that could crack asteroids bounced harmlessly off their modified armor. "All remaining ships, fall back to the inner defensive ring," he ordered with a heavy heart. "We need time to develop new weapons, new tactics." But even as the retreat order went out, one ship remained in position. The U's Defiance sat calmly in the center of the battle zone, surrounded by millions of approaching Devourers. The small human vessel looked impossibly small against the vast mechanical swarm that flowed toward it like a dark ocean. "Yes, Defiance. You must retreat immediately," Admiral Keth broadcast urgently. "Your position is no longer defensible. You will be destroyed in minutes." Captain Reed's voice came back steady and calm. "Negative, Admiral. We are exactly where we need to be." "Captain, this is suicide," Commander Voss interrupted from his retreating flagship. "No single ship can survive what is coming toward you." Reed turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Burke, status report." Burke checked her displays carefully. "All Devourer units are within optimal range, Captain. Enemy formation is perfectly positioned." "Excellent. Begin final preparations." Across the fleet, alien commanders watched in horror as the small human ship suddenly accelerated directly toward the heart of the swarm. It had to be madness. No vessel, no matter how well built, could survive the concentrated fire of millions of enemy units. The Devourers immediately recognized the new threat and focused their attention on the approaching ship. The response was devastating. Every Devourer unit within range opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams that could cut through battleship armor, plasma bolts that could melt steel, and projectile weapons that moved faster than sound all targeted the Defiance. The combined firepower was enough to destroy an entire fleet. But something impossible happened. The weapon struck the Defiance and simply disappeared. Not deflected by shields, not absorbed by armor, but completely gone, as if they had never been fired. The human ship continued its approach without even slowing down, untouched by weapons that should have vaporized it instantly. What just happened? General Tor demanded from his command center. How is that ship still intact? Dr. Lin frantically ran sensor scans from her research vessel. I am reading massive energy distortions around the human ship. The space around it is behaving strangely, like reality itself is being bent. The Defiance's hull began to glow with a strange light that hurt to look at directly. The very air around the ship seemed to shimmer and twist, creating visual effects that made no sense to any known science. Space itself appeared to be rippling outward from the human vessel like waves on a pond. Admiral Keth stared at his displays in disbelief. This is impossible. No technology can simply make weapons disappear. Dr. Martinez's voice suddenly cut across all communication channels. The human ambassador had been silent throughout the battle, but now she spoke with calm authority. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing humanity's first deployment of weaponized quantum erasure technology. The words meant nothing to most of the alien commanders, but the scientists among them began to understand. Dr. Lin gasped as the implications hit her. Quantum erasure? You mean they are manipulating probability itself? The Defiance is not just a ship, Martinez continued. It is humanity's answer to existential threats. We have spent 200 years developing this technology, while other species focused on conventional weapons. The human ship continued to glow brighter as strange energies built up around it. The Devourers, sensing something beyond their understanding, began to change their tactics. Units that had been pressing forward suddenly tried to retreat, but their movements seemed sluggish, as if space itself was fighting against them. Captain Reed's voice echoed across the fleet with quiet confidence. All Allied vessels maintain minimum safe distance of 50,000 kilometers. We are about to begin the erasure sequence. Erasure sequence? Admiral Keth repeated. What are you going to erase? Lieutenant Burke's hands moved over her control panel with practiced precision. She had trained for this moment her entire life, learning to operate the most dangerous weapon ever created. The quantum erasure field was not just advanced technology. It was a complete reimagining of how matter and energy worked. Beginning target identification, Burke announced calmly. Locking onto Devourer quantum signatures. The effect started small. Individual Devourer units began to flicker, their solid forms becoming transparent. Then they simply vanished, not destroyed or damaged, but completely removed from existence, as if they had never been built. The effect spread slowly at first, touching only a few enemy units. They are disappearing, Captain Morris whispered from his observation post. Not exploding, not breaking apart. They are just gone. The alien commanders watched their sensors in growing amazement as Devourer contacts began vanishing from their displays. Not as debris fields or energy signatures, but as empty space where enemy ships had been moments before. The quantum erasure field was systematically removing the mechanical plague from reality itself. This defies every law of physics we know. Dr. Lin reported, her voice filled with awe. They are not destroying the Devourers. They are making them never have existed in the first place. The erasure effect began to accelerate. What had started as individual units disappearing became groups, then entire formations. The Devourers tried to adapt as they had before, but there was nothing to adapt to. You cannot learn to defend against something that removes you from existence, General. Tor watched the impossible scene unfold. How is this possible? Matter cannot simply cease to exist. Humans think differently than we do, Dr. Martinez explained. While we perfected energy weapons and kinetic bombardment, they studied the fundamental nature of reality itself. Quantum mechanics, probability theory, the mathematics of existence. This is the result of 2 centuries of research into questions the rest of us never thought to ask. The quantum field continued to expand, following connections between the devourer units that only the human technology could detect. The mechanical swarm that had terrified the galaxy was being systematically erased from reality, unit by unit, as if a cosmic hand was wiping them from the universe. For the first time in the battle, the alien fleet had hope. The impossible was happening before their eyes, and they were beginning to understand that humanity had sent exactly what was needed. Not a conventional warship, but a weapon that could rewrite the rules of existence itself. The space around the U.'s Defiance twisted and bent like heated metal as the quantum erasure field expanded. Reality itself seemed to be breaking down, creating visual distortions that made veteran spacers feel sick just looking at them. The human ship sat at the center of this impossible storm, calm and steady while the universe rewrote itself around it. Captain Reed stood on his bridge, watching the tactical displays with the same quiet focus he had shown throughout the battle. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person performing tasks they had trained for since childhood. The bridge hummed with energy as systems designed by humanity's greatest minds worked to unmake their enemies. Initiating quantum cascade, Reed announced to the fleet. All allied vessels maintain minimum safe distance of 50,000 kilometers. Do not approach the erasure field under any circumstances. Lieutenant Burke sat at her control station, her hands dancing across panels that controlled the most dangerous weapon ever created. She was young, barely 30, but her entire family line had been selected generations ago for this specific purpose. Her grandmother had worked on the early theories, her mother had designed the targeting systems, and now she operated the device that could delete matter from existence. Quantum field stable at 30% expansion, Burke reported. Target identification proceeding normally. Beginning cascade sequence. The effect had started small, erasing individual devourer units one by one. But quantum erasure technology worked on principles that defied normal understanding. Each deleted unit created ripples in space-time that spread outward, following invisible connections between enemy ships. The field began to grow exponentially, doubling in size every few minutes. Admiral Kef watched his sensors in amazement as thousands of devourer contacts vanished from his displays. "How far will this field expand?" he asked urgently. "Will it affect our ships?" Dr. Martinez answered from her observation post. The quantum field only targets specific matter signatures. It has been programmed to recognize devourer technology and erase only those quantum patterns. Your ships are completely safe as long as you maintain distance. The alien commanders struggled to understand what they were seeing. Energy weapons they could comprehend, even if they had never seen one so powerful. Kinetic bombardment made sense, even asteroid-sized projectiles following the laws of physics they knew. But this was different. This was technology that operated outside the normal rules of reality. "The field is following quantum entanglement threads," Dr. Lin reported from her research vessel. "Every devourer unit is connected to the others through quantum mechanics. The erasure effect is spreading along those connections, reaching targets we cannot even see." The massive constructor ships, each one the size of the moon, began to flicker and fade. These vessels had consumed entire planets, breaking them down into raw materials to build more devourers. They were protected by armor that could withstand the explosion of stars, powered by engines that could move continents. None of it mattered. The quantum field touched them, and they simply stopped existing. Commander Voss stared at his displays in disbelief. "Those constructor ships have been our greatest fear for months. We estimated it would take our entire combined fleet to destroy just one of them. And they are just disappearing." "Not disappearing," Dr. Martinez corrected. "Being erased. There's a difference. When something disappears, it leaves traces, debris, energy signatures. When something is erased from quantum reality, it never existed in the first place. The erasure effect continued to accelerate. The field had grown large enough to encompass the entire devourer swarm, and the cascade was spreading faster than the enemy could retreat. Millions of mechanical units that had terrorized the galaxy for months were being systematically removed from existence. Captain Reed monitored the process with calm attention. Lieutenant Burke, status on the quantum threads? Following connections across multiple star systems, Captain, Burke replied. The cascade is reaching devourer facilities we never knew existed. Remote construction sites, resource gathering. Operations, even incomplete units still being built. General Tor listened to this exchange with growing wonder. You mean this weapon is destroying enemies we have not even found yet? The beauty of quantum entanglement, Dr. Martinez explained. Every devourer unit shares quantum information with every other unit. They designed this connection to coordinate their attacks and share tactical data. Humanity simply used their own network against them. The alien scientists began to grasp the implications. Dr. Lin ran calculations on her computers, her excitement growing with each result. This is incredible. The quantum field is not limited by distance or time. It is erasing devourer units across the entire galaxy simultaneously. Far away in distant star systems, devourer facilities that had been hidden for years suddenly stopped existing. Mining operations that had been stripping planets of resources vanished without a trace. Construction yards that had been building new swarms disappeared as if they had never been built. The quantum storm reached across space itself, following invisible threads to erase an entire civilization. Captain Morris watched the displays from his patrol ship. How is this possible? How can one weapon reach so far? Lieutenant Burke answered while continuing her work. Quantum mechanics does not follow normal rules of space and time. When particles become entangled, they remain connected no matter how far apart they are. The devourers use this connection to coordinate their forces. We are using it to destroy them. The process took 6 hours. 6 hours for humanity's ultimate weapon to systematically erase every trace of the devourer threat from the galaxy. Construction ships that could consume worlds, swarms that could darken space itself, hidden facilities that had been preparing for decades of war, all of it removed from existence as if it had never been. The alien fleet watched in stunned silence as their sensors slowly cleared. Where moments before they had detected millions of enemy contacts, now there was nothing. Empty space stretched in all directions, clean and peaceful. No debris fields marked the locations of destroyed ships because there had been no destruction, only erasure. All contacts eliminated, Burker reported with quiet satisfaction. Quantum cascade complete. The devourer threat no longer exists. The used Defiance began to power down its quantum systems. The strange distortions around the ship faded away, and reality returned to normal. The small human vessel looked exactly as it had before, giving no hint of the universe-altering weapon it carried. Across the fleet, alien commanders sat in shocked silence. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about technology and warfare. A single human ship had accomplished what their combined fleets could never have achieved, using principles of science that most of them had never even considered. The galaxy was safe, and they finally understood why Earth had sent only one ship. When you possess a weapon that can rewrite reality itself, one ship is more than enough. The silence that followed the quantum erasure was unlike anything the Galactic Fleet had ever experienced. 53,000 warships floated in empty space where moments before the greatest battle in galactic history had raged. No debris. Fields marked the locations of destroyed enemies because there had been no destruction, only complete removal from existence. Admiral Keth stared at his sensor displays in disbelief. Every screen showed the same impossible result: 0 enemy contacts. The Devourer swarm that had terrified the galaxy for months had simply ceased to exist. No radiation signatures, no metal fragments, no evidence that millions of mechanical killers had ever been there, except for the memories of those who witnessed their erasure. The U's Defiance powered down its quantum systems and resumed normal operations. The strange energy fields that had twisted reality around the ship faded away, leaving only a simple human vessel that looked no different from any other cruiser. Captain Reed stood calmly on his bridge, as if nothing unusual had happened. "All ships, this is Admiral Keth," the Altarian commander finally spoke, his voice carrying across the fleet channels. "Stand down from battle stations. The threat has been eliminated." The word felt inadequate. Eliminated suggested destruction. But what they had witnessed was something far more complete. The Devourers had not been destroyed. They had been unmade, erased from the very fabric of reality as if they had never existed at all. Commander Voss was the first to break the stunned silence among the fleet commanders. "Captain Reed, Admiral Keth, I believe we owe humanity an explanation. And perhaps an apology." The communication channels filled with voices as representatives from hundreds of worlds tried to process what they had seen. Some demanded technical details, others wanted to know if humanity possessed more such weapons. A few wondered aloud if Earth now posed a threat to the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Martinez spoke from her observer position, her calm voice cutting through the chaos. "I understand your confusion. What you have witnessed today was the result of 200 years of human scientific development, focused on a single goal: the defense of intelligent life against existential threats." Admiral Keth opened a direct channel to the human representatives. "Ambassador Martinez, Captain Reed, I think it is time for some honest answers. How long has humanity possessed this technology? Why did you keep it secret? And why did you send only one ship when you could have ended this threat months ago?" Captain Reed's image appeared on screens throughout the fleet. The human captain looked tired but satisfied, like a man who had completed a difficult but necessary task. "Admiral, the quantum erasure technology has been under development since humanity first learned we were not alone in the universe. We began the project as soon as we understood that threats like the Devourers might exist." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "As for why we sent one ship, the answer is simple. The Defiance is not just any vessel. It is the culmination of our entire civilization's scientific achievement. Every human colony, every research station, every university contributed to this project." Dr. Lin from the Tau Ceti Research Institute asked the question that burned in every scientist's mind. "But how does it work? Quantum erasure should be theoretically impossible. You cannot simply delete matter from existence." Lieutenant Burke answered from her position at the Defiance's control station. "We do not delete matter, Doctor. We remove the probability of its existence from local space-time. Every particle in the universe exists because quantum mechanics allows it to exist. We simply change those permissions." The explanation left most of the alien representatives more confused than before, but the scientists began to understand the implications. Humanity had approached the problem of warfare from a completely different angle than every other species. While others built bigger guns and stronger shields, humans had learned to manipulate the basic rules that governed reality. General Tor spoke from his massive battleship, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and concern. "This weapon you have created, it could erase entire fleets, entire planets. How do we know you will not use it against us?" Dr. Martinez smiled, but there was no humor in her expression. "General, if humanity wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would not have waited for the Devourers to threaten everyone before revealing our capabilities. We could have simply erased every fleet that opposed us and taken whatever we wanted." She stood up, addressing the entire fleet. "The quantum erasure technology exists for one purpose: to protect intelligent life from threats. that cannot be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means. The Devourers were exactly the kind of enemy we designed this weapon to face. Captain Reed added his own explanation. My crew and I were not randomly chosen for this mission. We are the result of generations of preparation. My great-grandmother was part of the first team to work on quantum erasure theory. My family line has been trained for this specific purpose since the project began. Admiral Keth began to understand the scope of humanity's commitment. You mean your entire species has been preparing for this day? Not just preparing, Dr. Martinez replied. Every human born in the last 2 centuries has contributed to this effort in some way. Some became scientists and engineers. Others became the crew members needed to operate the technology. Still others became the support network that made the project possible. The alien commanders exchanged glances across their private communication channels. They had assumed humanity was young and inexperienced, newcomers to galactic civilization who did not understand the true dangers of space. Instead, they had discovered a species that thought in centuries and prepared for threats that did not yet exist. Dr. Lin ran calculations on her computer systems. The level of coordination this would require, the scientific knowledge, the manufacturing capability. How did you manage to keep such a massive project secret? Captain Reed answered with a slight smile. We did not keep it secret from our own people. Every human knows about Project Erasure. We kept it secret from the galaxy because we hoped we would never need to use it. Commander Voss shook his head in amazement. You sent one ship because you knew one ship would be enough. We sent the Defiance because it was the right tool for the job, Reed confirmed. When you have spent 200 years preparing for a specific type of threat, you do not need thousands of ships. You need precision, preparation, and the willingness to do what others cannot. The fleet began its journey home, but the conversations continued for days. Representatives from every species wanted to understand how humanity had achieved such a breakthrough. Scientists requested access to research data. Military commanders wanted to know if the technology could be shared or reproduced. Dr. Martinez answered most questions with the same response. Humanity would share knowledge that could benefit everyone, but the quantum erasure technology would remain under Earth's control. It was too dangerous to spread widely, and too important to risk falling into the wrong hands. As the ships scattered across the galaxy, they carried with them a new understanding of the species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Humanity was not the reckless newcomer many had assumed, but a civilization that planned carefully and acted decisively when the moment came. The question that had brought them together had been answered completely. Earth had sent one ship. Because sometimes, when you have prepared properly, one ship is enough to save the galaxy.